and I've never been to New York. I've never seen a seedy underbelly. Hey, welcome back to my channel. Today is all about the books. A few of you have requested that I do a video all about thrifting books, so I have done that. That's what this is. I've been thrifting, charity shop shopping, if you will, and I have checked out a section that I rarely look at, which is the book section. And I found 10 fabulous books that I cannot wait to read. Now, I should just quantify, I have a few great loves in life. One of them is charity shop shopping, clearly, and the other is reading. I absolutely love reading. I have a slightly unusual approach to reading in that I have a few favourite authors. One of them is Stephen King, another is Patricia Cornwell, and I tend to collect all of their books and read them over and over and over again. And I very seldom stray outside my core group of favourite authors. That's just how I roll. So I thought, when a few of you suggested maybe doing a book video, I thought, firstly, I think it'll be interesting, but secondly, it's probably a really good thing for me because it will get me outside the comfort zone and get me reading some new authors. So that is what we have done. And I will get into the books in a second. It was really lovely thrifting books. So I went to the charity shops. I didn't go to any brand new bookstores. I like to support the charity shops, as clearly you know. And it was a lovely experience. So I went in loads of different shops, and I think I bought a book in pretty much all of the shops I went in. The range of offerings differed. So some of the charity shops only had like a very small section of books to choose from, all the way up to Oxfam, which had it was a bookshop basically. So there was all sorts to look in. There was all sorts to choose from even. The Oxfam bookshop in particular I was really impressed with because they had a lovely little seating area. They had lots of different sections and it was all labelled so you knew exactly where to go for what type of book. And they had some really lovely comfortable looking seats as well. So presumably you can just sit down and read a few pages to get a feel for if you like the author or not. So I thought that was really lovely. There were a couple of charity shops that organised their book sections in A to Z of authors. Some did it by genre and one did it just based on the colour of the spine, which made it quite difficult to find what you were looking for, but at the same time actually it was really pleasing on the eye. And I suppose you could flip it, couldn't you? You could say it was difficult to look for a certain author, but that meant I looked at all the authors and all the genres, and you know, I ended up buying some things that I wouldn't necessarily have bought, so that's a good thing, I think. The prices in this haul, I'm not going to go through them individually because I've actually forgotten. But I can tell you that the books were between 49p to £2 each. The majority of them were about 50p. They're very, very reasonably priced indeed. So it was fabulous. It was really, really good. One final thing to note before we get into the book haul. The book haul. Because I got 10 books, I'm probably going to split it out across a couple of different videos. But I thought we could do maybe a Becky's book club type of thing where I will say in advance which books I'm going to read them, and then I'll do a video about my thoughts and my reactions and my rating, that kind of thing. I love analysing books, absolutely love it. I did an English degree and I feel like I'm finally, like 20 years later, I'm finally going to be using it with a little bit of analysis, and it will be interesting, and I promise I will find some interesting insights to share with you guys. So if you would like to comment below, let me know once you've seen the haul which books you want me to read first. I'll read them first and then I'll do a video all about it for you. What I'll do, once you've all let me know which books you think I should read first, I will put a post up to say which books I'm going to read. You're very welcome to read them too, and then we can have a book club. I think that would be quite cool. So the first book is Me Before You. Now this is the worst condition book that I have, and it's kind of like squashed. But it's nothing that squashing it between a few other books won't solve. And apart from that, it's actually in immaculate condition. No creases, nothing like that, it's just a bit squished. So I will be flattening it out, but all the books are in really, really good condition, which is lovely. So this is by Jojo Moyes, and I'm going to read the blurb of each of the books so you get a feel for what they're about. Some are longer than others, some are very, very short. So, Lou Clark knows a lot of things. She knows how many footsteps there are between the bus stop and home. She knows she likes working in the buttered bun tea shop, and she knows she might not love her boyfriend Patrick. What Lou doesn't know is she's about to lose her job, or that knowing what's coming next is what keeps her sane. Will Traynor knows his motorcycle accident took away his desire to live. He knows everything feels very small and rather joyless now, and he knows exactly how he's going to put a stop to that. What Will doesn't know is that Lou is about to burst into his world in a riot of colour, and neither of them knows they're going to change the other for all time. Now, I haven't read this, and I know there's a film, and I haven't seen the film. I'm really terrified because it's a romance. This is a love story, isn't it? And I don't normally read love stories just because it's not my genre. But there's something about this that I really want to read. But on the back it says, "A triumph packs such an emotional punch, you'll need a box of tissues." And I was like, that's okay, I can deal with that. And then it says, "Magical and heartbreaking, waterproof mascara, essential." I just know this is going to be tragic, and I don't want to sob, but I do think this is a good book. The number of people who've recommended it, without telling me anything about it, number of people who've recommended it suggests it's a really good book, so I'm going to read it. I'm going to steel myself and go for it, but we'll see. The next book I'm really fascinated by, was also a little bit terrified because it's The Librarian of Auschwitz. Clearly a really horrific, traumatic subject matter. However, the blurb makes me think it might be quite uplifting despite what it's clearly about. It wasn't an extensive library. In fact, it consisted of 8 books, but they were books. In this incredibly dark place, they were a reminder of less sombre times, when words rang out more loudly than machine guns. 14-year-old Dieter is one of the many imprisoned by the Nazis at Auschwitz, but Dieter becomes the secret librarian of the camp, tasked with taking charge of the small collection of precious books the prisoners have managed to smuggle past the guards. But books are extremely dangerous. They make people think. And nowhere are they more dangerous than Block 31 of Auschwitz, where the slightest transgression can result in execution, no matter how young the transgressor. I was really, really worried that this might have a tragic ending because knowing the subject matter, it seems highly likely. However, I did cheat and I peeped at the start. There's actually a preface written by Dieter, who is the main character of the book, and obviously a real life lady. And that made me feel a little bit less scared because I'm hoping that this will be a story of survival and courage and bravery and triumph in the most terrifying of circumstances. So although as I talk to you about this, I do feel like, oh my goodness, I am actually really looking forward to reading about this. This subject matter I think is super important that people read about it. It happened, we have to acknowledge that. And I don't feel that I know as much about it as I should, and reading about it is a way to change that. Next, we have an American classic, Bright Lights, Big City. Now what appealed about this is I recognise the author's name. He's well known as an American classic author. I haven't read anything by him and I really feel like I need to, so I picked this up. I read the back and, well, I'll read it to you and then I'll tell you what I thought. You're at a nightclub talking to a girl with a shaved head. The club is either Heartbreak or the Lizard Lounge. All might become clear if you could just slip into the bathroom and do a little more Bolivian marching powder. Then again, it might not. So begins our nameless hero's trawl through the brightly lit streets of Manhattan, sampling all this wonderland has to offer, yet suspecting that tomorrow's hangover may be caused by more than simple excess. This appeals to me because it appears to dip a toe or more into the seedy underbelly of New York. And I've never been to New York. I've never seen a seedy underbelly. This feels like a peek into another world, that's what I'm trying to say. It really appeals to me, and yet if it is an American classic, there has to be more to it than just someone who takes drugs in New York. And I'm really looking forward, I just hit myself in the chin. I'm really looking forward to finding out what that is. So I know very little about it, really looking forward to reading this one. Next, we have a book written by possibly the founding father of sci-fi fiction. And if you feel differently, comment below. I'm always happy to be challenged, always happy to hear alternative opinions. It's a short story collection and I love short stories. You can get really absorbed into an amazing new world in a really short space of time. And this has got loads in there. It's interesting because it is actually containing the story on which the Will Smith film I, Robot was based. I know this because I flicked through and I thought, ah, that looks familiar. So I'm looking forward to reading this one. You know when you have a quick peek at a page and you think, I really like the way that author writes. This is a perfect example of that. So again, super excited to read this one. I think it's going to be really fantastic. When I do a review of it, I probably won't review every single story because I think that could probably go into a video of its own. But I do intend on picking out a few of the best, or best in my opinion, stories and giving you some highlights from that. So again, another really cracking read. I'm so looking forward to it. Okay, this next one, I think you're going to be potentially quite shocked that I know so little about this, but that is precisely why I've chosen this book. It is The Colour Purple by Alice Walker. I know that there was a film starring Whoopi Goldberg and that she was critically acclaimed in it. And apart from that, I knew nothing else. And I did a quick Google. Again, I think this is going to be quite a traumatic read because the subject matter sounds really harrowing. However, again, it's another American classic. And it's one of those that if you haven't read it, you kind of... I feel like I absolutely need to read it. Like I say, I Googled it and the situations the main character appears to go through are going to be extremely traumatic, extremely harrowing. I feel like it's an education. There are some books that you need to read and this feels like one of them. When I Googled it, I actually learned that it was banned for a plethora of reasons, some of which I don't think books should ever be banned for, and I will get into that more in detail when I've read the book. I also feel like if a book is banned, it makes it even more important to read, especially with an open and critical mind, because if a book is banned, that doesn't necessarily mean it's a bad book and shouldn't be read. It probably indicates it's even more important to be read, and the people who banned it may have a slightly biased judgment. So, really, really looking forward to reading this one. I'm probably going through in the order that I picked them up actually, and by this point I was feeling a little bit like, oh my god, I'm setting myself up for some very depressing next few weeks of reading. So I picked up How to Win Friends and Influence People. This is quite an iconic self-help book, so to speak, and I didn't realise it was actually written in 1953. So part of me wants to learn how to win friends and influence people, and the other part wants to see if it's full of very outdated 50s wisdom. But I think this was reprinted quite recently, so I'm guessing that it's still a bestseller, it's still doing well, and it probably translates really well today. I did have a quick dip into it, and it does appear to be all about communicating really positively. And, you know, that's a very, very positive thing, obviously, communicating positively. And that's a really, really fantastic skill to have. So I'm going to be reading this and I will share my best tips with you from the book. They're not my tips then, are they? I will share the best tips from the book with you. Excuse me, I've got pins and needles in my feet because I'm still not sitting on the chairs, I'm still sitting on the floor. This next book, I debated whether to put it in the haul at all. It is We Need to Talk About Kevin, and it's about a young teenager who commits an atrocity. The book is narrated from the point of view of his mother, who is writing letters to her estranged husband, the child's father, about everything that happened up to the point when the child commits the act. The reason I debated including this is that the subject matter is extremely distressing and it seems to be in the news far too often in real life. So I completely understand if people don't want a review of it. However, I have read the book before. This is the only book of the haul that I have read. It's extremely powerful, and just because something is, quite frankly, terrifying and extremely tragic, it doesn't mean we should be ignorant to it. So I am going to be reading it. I may not do a review of it though, because I want to be respectful and sensitive. Whew, okay, after that one, I think we need something really uplifting, so I got this. A Street Cat Named Bob. This is based, oh, there's a hair, it's not a cat hair. This is based on a real life story of a gentleman who fell on hard times. He became homeless and he adopted a cat named Bob. I know very little apart from that. I know that there was a film based on it and I know it's a true story. There's a little picture on the back, which is so sweet. I'm really looking forward to this because I think it'll be really uplifting. The blurb is so sweet, listen to this. When James found an injured ginger street cat curled up in the hallway of his sheltered accommodation, he had no idea just how much his life was about to change. James was living hand to mouth on the streets of London, and the last thing he needed was a pet. Yet James couldn't resist helping the strikingly intelligent tomcat, whom he quickly christened Bob. Soon the two were inseparable, and their diverse, comic and occasionally dangerous adventures would transform both their lives, slowly healing the scars of each other's troubled pasts. This sounds like it's going to be really heartwarming and really uplifting. There's no mistaking that my haul is basically harrowing books apart from this one and the self-help book. And I did reflect on the fact that maybe the books that make us sad are the ones that get donated the most. I want to read a book that makes me think and feel really strong emotions. And I don't want it to be frustration because it's a badly written book. I mean, I want to sob. I want to feel massive joy and really root for the main characters. And I think I will with this one. So this is one that I'm probably going to need to read, quite frankly, after some of the books that I've got in the haul. But it's there and it's going to lift me up, I'm hoping. I've got my fingers crossed. The next book is called Room, and it's by Emma Donoghue. It has a really short blurb on the back. It's literally, Jack is 5, he lives in a single locked room with his ma. And that's it. There's lots of quotes about the book afterwards. It says it will break your heart, not so good, but it also says a triumph, affecting and uplifting, haunting and compelling. And that really captures my interest. Now this was one of the few books in the haul that was recommended to me by a colleague, so I thought I'd give it a go. I don't know very much, I do get a sense from the very short blurb about what the book is about. I was a bit terrified it might have a tragic ending. I've got a few of those coming my way, haven't I? However, when I looked through, in the contents it says presence, unlying, dying, after, and living. So I'm really, really hopeful this has a happy ending. The fact that they're living suggests to me that they get out of the room. I won't know until I read it, but God, I really hope I'm not setting myself up for a bout of serious malaise after reading all these books. Oh my goodness. On to the final book. This is really intriguing. Bear with me, because the start of the blurb is really depressing. It does get better, I promise, okay? Bear with me. A boy drowns, desperate and alone in his final moments. He dies. Then he wakes, naked and bruised and thirsty, but alive. How can this be? And what is this strange, deserted place? As he struggles to understand what is happening, the boy dares to hope. Might this not be the end? Might there be more to this life, or perhaps this afterlife? And because it deals with that subject matter, I'm fascinated by this. So I grabbed it. And do you know what? The thing that caught my eye about this book, I only saw the spine, and it was the spine that caught my eye. I mean, you can get a feel for the genre of a book by the cover. Clearly, the font that's used, the subject matter of any photograph or picture that's on the front, you can understand if it's a crime or a horror or a romance. I just thought, this looks fascinating, and this is the cover. More than this. And instantly you kind of get a sense that this is going to be some sort of drama or existential crisis. I think it's a bit of both, but with a bit of afterlife and supernatural stuff thrown in. So looking forward to reading this one. If you have made it to the end of this video, well done, and thank you. I really hope that I haven't depressed any of you with this haul. Like I said, the reason I've chosen such emotive and serious books, that's the kind of thing I gravitate to. I am a little bit nervous that some of them are going to stay with me, but actually the books that haunt you are the books that are worth reading. I did see a few quite raunchy looking titles when I was going around the charity shops, and there was a little part of me, the little devil on my shoulder, that impishly said, oh, maybe you should get one of those just to read it and review it. But I couldn't quite bring myself to do it because I thought, you know, what if it's a bit of a letdown? I mean, that would be really disappointing to buy a book and think, oh, this is going to be good, and then it's just like purple prose, like really badly written, very, very shallow characters. So do you know what? I just left them. I'm sure somebody else will find them and probably have a whale of a time reading them, but they weren't quite for me. There's two really important criteria when I am buying a book. I want something that makes me feel a really strong emotion, and I want something that makes me think. And every single book in this haul. I think we'll do that. I was so excited to get reading. Reading is so fantastic for the soul. Even when it's a depressing subject matter, you get transported to another world, you get really invested in these fantastic characters and their struggles, you're really rooting for them, and when they triumph, it means the world. So I'm really looking forward to delving into these worlds and these characters' lives, and I will share them with you. So just as a final reminder, please let me know in the comments which books you'd like me to read first. I will round up the winners, I'll post them in a post and we'll go from there. You're very welcome to read them too, and you can share in the comments what you thought about them. And yeah, and we'll do a Becky's book club. I'm really looking forward to it. Right, thank you so much as always for watching. I hope you have a great week, and I will see you in the next video. Take care, bye! Once I've read the books, I'm actually going to do a couple of videos. I'll probably, because I've got 10 books, I'm probably going to... You can read along. I'm letting you know...